Welcome to Creative Chat, the show in which creativity is celebrated and explored with a little therapy thrown in. Each show brings artists from different modalities together to discuss their art, their creative process, and how we all are interconnected. Tune in today to find out how with your host, Dr. Judi Bloom, and entertainer, Richard Skipper.
Hello, Judi.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
I am doing great. I can't believe how fast this summer is going. And you're going to be going away on a little trip. When do you leave?
August 4th. So we will do one more show in 2 weeks, our normal Thursday, and then take a little bit of a hiatus.
Well, actually, we won't be able to do that because I'm leaving on the 3rd.
So there we go.
This is it, folks, for the next couple. And when do you get back?
Mid-October. So mid-October, right.
Everybody will be taking the summer off, the rest of the summer, and we'll be back in October with gorgeous cans and celebrating the arts. I am so excited about today's show because we have three movers and shakers in the business. We have Donald Feltham, who has his own radio podcast. I was a guest on his show a few weeks ago, and I said, I want to turn the tables and have him here. He is about to celebrate his 800th episode. He's been doing this for 21 years. Talk about longevity in this business.
Yeah.
And then John Fisher, who was here before, who is bi-coastal, and is, when he's not in San Francisco, we're lucky to have him here in New York. And then we have Donald N. Hilton from Goodspeed Musicals. The Goodspeed Opera House is one of my favorite theaters anywhere. I have never seen a show there that I did not enjoy. So I am thrilled that she's going to be joining us today. But let's jump right in. I always like to start with a mystery question. So your mystery question today, 1 through 4.
Right. You know me, number 3.
Number 3. And the question is, it says, explore a path to mentoring, particularly in a space or subject where you have a special skill. Have you ever thought of being, or have you been a mentor to others?
I think in a lot of ways I'm a mentor to many others as a therapist, because people that I work with tend to look to me to help them navigate their life, right? So that is very much mentoring, I think.
Well, you've been very, very fortunate because, I mean, you started out in media yourself, doing television and everything, and now a therapist. Who would you consider the great mentors that you've had, and what do you think makes a great mentor?
Oh, I've had several. I had a great mentor in junior high school, a teacher who was just a terrific role model, and who guided me to have the confidence to apply to and get into Cornell. I had a mentor when I was doing television news. My managing editor at WNEW in New York, when I started there, who helped guide me and gave me chances and, let me mess up and then, help me figure out how to do it better. So those were a couple of the mentors I've had. And in therapy, I certainly have had several mentors, people that I've, studied under or who were supervisors of mine as I was learning how to be a therapist, and who really taught me the craft, because it is an art. It's not just a science, it's an art.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring on our first guest. I'm going to bring on Donald right now. And hello, Donald. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Donald.
Hi, Richard.
So I'm going to begin by asking you the same question. Who have been some of the great mentors that have paved the way for the work that you do now?
I was listening to Judy's answer, and the first thing that struck me was probably the one who nurtured my love for theater, which was a gentleman named John Hume. I grew up here in the Los Angeles area, and John Hume had founded what was at the time the Downey Children's Theater, and I got involved through my mom, who was on the board. And John Hume also created the Downey Spotlight Opera, which I became very actively involved in. And as I got older, I was on the board of directors for the Spotlight Opera and was producing shows. And John Hume was just so wonderful at bringing children into the theater world and kind of nurturing a passion for theater, because his passion for the art was so infectious that a lot of kids, and a lot of them went on to Broadway careers, started under John Hume.
And have you ever mentored yourself, or have you been in a position where you've had the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, I mean, my other work when I'm not doing theater related stuff is I've been in the legal business for probably more than 30 years now. Because as a lot of us know, living in the arts isn't always a way to make a living. So you sometimes have to have.
That's who?
Yeah, maybe for you, Richard, but
no.
You have to have a career outside that pays the bills. And for me, it's always been the legal profession. And I've mentored a lot of people that way, working at various large, small, and medium law firms and kind of nurturing talent within a law firm and getting them to move up the ranks and develop their skills. And so, yeah, I've done a lot of mentoring myself.
Well, as I said earlier, I had the opportunity of doing your show a couple of weeks ago on the Broadway Radio Show. What I love about what you do, first of all, thank you for saying yes when we reached out to you, my assistant Erin. But you asked for 12 songs, and as I was putting the songs together, and I've been now going back and listening to a lot more of them. Sean Patrick Murtaugh, who is a good friend, who's been on this show, and I love how each person comes about this in a different way. When I was putting the songs together, especially with the show that I've got coming up, I told you I was really giving you the soundtrack of my life, and it truly was. Right. And I love the way that you weaved it all together and made it work. I know this was your idea to do this 12-song arc with your show. What are some of the things that have surprised you about the show and what you've learned, not only about yourself, but about the artists that you bring on the show?
Well, the 12 favorite ShowTune shows, which are kind of reoccurring types of episodes, really it initially started kind of as a PR ploy, because oftentimes I would have someone on. You mentioned Sean Patrick Murtaugh, and Sean has been on my show a couple of times. And the first time he was on, he was promoting his brand new album. And then as a way to re-promote the album or to re-promote any cabaret shows he's got coming up, or for any artist like that, I have them come on a second time and do their 12 favorite show tunes. And then we can kind of replug what we plugged the first time, but now we have a new reason to have them on. But it's been really eye-opening, because most people jump at the assignment because they think, oh, this will be fun. But then I usually get emails later saying, oh my God, this is so hard. I can't narrow it down to 12, or every day my 12 changes. And I tell them that it's whatever 12 on that particular day is fine, but it's very revealing, because the audience learns a lot about the artist when they select their 12 favorites. They kind of learn about them and they learn about themselves. I had an actress on several years ago when I first started doing these 12 favorites, and she, about halfway through doing the 12 favorites, she said to me on the air, she said, oh my God, I'm just realizing that all of these songs I'm picking are like torch songs about being brokenhearted and losing my man. And she goes, what is this saying about me, that's what all these songs are? And I said, well, it kind of is revealing to yourself. And I think the listeners get a kick out of it. And I think the people who come on and do it get a kick out of it also. And I always get something out of it, because it reveals to me a little bit more about them. And I like the surprises. The best part is having them pick a song no one else has ever picked from a show that no one else has ever picked a song from. So that's always fun.
and songs are so much the stories of our lives, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
I would think we're heavily influenced in terms of picking our quote favorites by how old we were, what was going on in our life at the time we saw that musical or heard that, musical song or whatever. That really is what impacts us. And then
Mhm.
it's something that we carry with us. And so it's got a lot of emotional attachment, per song, right?
Right, exactly.
Well,
And that's how people go about picking their songs, is they usually will, oftentimes they'll say, oh, well, this was the first show I ever performed in. I didn't necessarily sing the song, but it's a show that I did, the very first show I did on stage. And so
Right.
it's got some nostalgia for them. And the rule always is, you can pick any version of the show tune that you want, but you cannot be the person singing it. So it's not you singing it, it's got to be somebody else.
have you is that a choice that you've maintained, or would you prefer that, like Sean has a CD,
Mhm.
play any of his tracks when he was on the show?
When he was on the show to promote the CD, yeah, we played many tracks from the CD when he was on the show to promote that. But I kind of, when I set out the 12 favorites originally, it was sort of like it was there to be more of a reveal of the person rather than a promo of their vocal abilities. I really wanted them. That's why I kind of tried to steer them away from them singing a particular song. I want what they would pick to listen to.
Well, I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question. Number one, 21 years. Can you believe that it's been 21 years, number one? And number two, does it feel like it's been 21 years?
Okay, well, 21 years, it's actually been a little bit longer than 21 years that I've been doing this. I fell into radio, oh God, I don't have those dates in front of me, but it was in the late 90s, I think it was. I think I sent you the info. But I started out I was approached to do some terrestrial radio here in Los Angeles by a station that had converted to a ShowTunes format. And that was my first time ever being on radio. I did that for about a year and a half. And then after they changed formats yet again, I was then approached by our producer, Bruce Kimmel, to come and do a radio show for his brand new Finsworth Alley record label. He wanted to do a streaming radio show. And so I did that for also about a year and a half. That was difficult because it was 3 shows a week. So it was, and we recorded 3 months ahead of time. So we would actually go into a recording studio and record 36 shows over 3 days, which was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And then when he created his new website, Haynes His Way, he then asked me to move, and I said, I will go only on the terms that it's 1 show a week. And you let me record at home and I get all the equipment I need. So it's been 21 years of that version of the radio show.
And just to let everyone know, if you get my newsletter each week, I've got a plug for you in the newsletter.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and so who's coming up on Sunday?
Well, this Sunday is not every show is an interview show.
Right, I know.
I have some more music focused shows, and one of the series that I do is Putting It Together, where we listen to the score of a musical using multiple cast recordings. So I gather all the cast recordings I have for a particular show, and we listen to the score from beginning to end, but it's different tracks from different cast recordings making up the
I love that. So what show is it?
This week is going to be Camelot. Mostly because the brand new production, their cast recording just came out recently. So
great.
We'll be hearing 4 different cast recordings of Camelot as we hear the entire score.
Well, I want to bring John on, but before we do, you get a mystery question, 1 through 3.
2.
And I don't know what the questions are. What stereotype do you actually live up to?
Oh, God. Well, I don't know if it's a stereotype, and I'm not always a firm believer in astrology, but I am an Aquarius.
I am too.
And I have been told by people who are firm followers of astrology that I am very much a stereotypical Aquarian.
Well, that's something you and I have in common.
I've got all the personality traits, apparently. So,
right. Well, I'm going to bring on John. I don't think he is an Aquarian. Are you, John?
I'm a Libran.
So you're balanced.
I am not. I don't know where. I don't believe in any of that because I'm the most unbalanced person I know. So I need Judi's help like today. So I don't know. It's, I'm missing something with the Libran thing, but.
So I want to go through the questions that I've asked both of them. Mentors, people who you feel have shaped your career and your life. And the second part of that question is, have you been in the position of being a mentor? And I think I can answer that because you run Theatre Rhinoceros, and you very much have to be a mentor to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I'm a solo performer, I was fortunate enough to study with Spalding Gray, who was the master, right? And very different from me. He sat at a desk and was mesmerizing, and I'm like flying around the theater. So I'm not sure I learned the lesson, but he was very inspiring just in his focus and his intelligence. And I think that that's something that I always remember. Where treat the audience like they're smart, entertain them, but always, they're smart. They can follow you. You can take them on a journey. And I was very moved by working with him and inspired. Also, my high school drama teacher, and he was like, he just sat at the back of the theater shouting, louder, louder. And he snapped his fingers, pace, 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 articulation. I mean, he got theater down to basics. And that was the best place to start. And then this is going to surprise you a little bit because I was thinking as you asked this question, a mentor of mine, The Show Must Go On, is Richard Skipper, who, when we had Carol Channing come to the theater to perform for us.
Well, tell them what happened.
She broke her hip. And Richard saved the show. Carol couldn't come. And Richard was there doing his impersonation, welcoming the audience.
I didn't do an impersonation that night.
You did on the phone. You talked to her. You had a conversation with her. We had two Carols.
Yes.
Yeah,
I will say that, I had that week was Carol Channing Days in San Francisco, where she grew up. And I had flown in from Malibu, where I had done a show the night before. And I get a call from her publicist saying, "Where are you?" And I said, "We're here in San Francisco." And he said, "Well, you may want to pull the covers over your head if you're still in bed." It was 8:00 in the morning. He said she fell, broke her hip. And because she fell and broke her hip, I said, I'm not going to do it because I don't want anyone to feel that I was exploiting her, going on without her. And she called me and she said, "You're letting me down."
Right.
And I said, "Carol," I said, "that's the last thing in the world I want to do. If I do it, I'm going to do it as Richard, not as Carol." And she said, "Well, I like Richard too." So we did it that night. So, and yes, the show must go on.
And the show went on, and you did have a conversation with her in her voice, live for us. I think she was afraid of me because I said, "Great, your hip's broken. Get down here. I'll hold you up." I think she was just scared. I think she was like, "Oh my God, this guy's a maniac. I better get Richard in there." And you showed up. You were so charming and so connected to Carol that I think people were like, "Oh, this is fine. This is fine. This is fine."
Yeah,
so,
it was a fun night.
It was a totally fun night. And there were plenty of Carol imitators there. It was like a Carol
more
that night.
Won, and I said, "Jordan, how would you like to talk to Carol?" And I thought Jordan was going to pass out. But I got Carol on the phone, and they did it. So I want to ask you before we bring Donna on: is there anything about you that is stereotypical?
I think I'm the stereotypical theater person who just walks in the room with far too much energy, just like, bouncing off the walls, and and then everybody has to sort of calm me down. And I'm always like, let's keep going, Union people, I drive union stage managers crazy. They're like, "It's time for break." Who needs a break? I didn't need a break. Come on, let's go. I'm just like, it's fun. So I think I'm like that stereotypical theater nightmare person.
Energizer Bunny, yes.
And you have so many shows that you do. I mean, what is the turnover rate before you start working on the next project?
Well, for the solo pieces, it's a show a week. So I start on the previous week on Saturday, and we deliver the new show on Friday. This show coming up next weekend is an innovation for me because it's my first solo show with another actor.
A solo show with another
I've
actor.
done that before. So,
Okay.
so I decided to add this incredibly talented Nick Giovannone. He's an opera singer, and he's actually very funny. So he's like this weird combination of opera singer stand-up. So I've added into the show we're doing at the Tank next Thursday and Friday, which is called Arts in America. And so for the first time ever, we're developing it together. And I've told him to bring in a bunch of songs. We're going to plug them in, and we're going to create a show around that. It's like a crazy backstage music.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and because I can't sing a note, he's going to do a lot of singing.
John, that doesn't stop a lot of people.
Yeah, I can sing well if he sings loudly in my ear.
Okay.
I can sing chorus with him.
Judy, you had a question?
No, I'm just wondering if is the show going to be improv, or are you going to script it ahead of time, or what's
good question. We come up with an outline.
Mm-hmm.
We improvise off the outline, then we run it a whole bunch of times. By the time we actually do it, we're almost doing a scripted show. It's almost scripted. It's weird because we get to a point where, and there's still room in there to go with something if we feel like it's clicking with the audience. But otherwise, we just stick to our outline.
To whatever comes up in the improv, right?
Right. Whatever comes up in the improv, then we set it, we run it. We go over it so many times that we know where we're supposed to go from moment to moment. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. It's great fun. And this whole singing thing has gotten me. It's totally. And I love. This is great for me because, musical theater was my music, and I found it in high school when everybody else was listening to, heavy metal, and so I didn't fit in at all. And I found musicals, and one of the first I found was Camelot, Richard Burton, right? And tonight I'm going to go see the new Camelot.
Right.
This is so interesting to be involved in this conversation because.
And then on Sunday you tune into Donald's show.
I know exactly. So I'm like a fiend for trivia. So and I love comparing different recordings. And there's nobody who can sing like Richard Burton. So I'm really eager about tonight because I'm going to be like the toughest audience out there, But
it's a very different production. Just be prepared.
I know.
They took all the magic out. So
don't give it away.
I'm not giving it away, but all the magic. So
you mean the literal magic?
The little magic.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were. Oh, okay. Interesting.
No.
I've heard that. Yes.
Okay. So 2 questions are left, 1 or 2, and then we're going to bring Donna on.
Okay. 1.
And your question is, I'm going to change it. Take 10 seconds to identify what being a good person means to you.
Oh, wow. My parents were all about they're all about good manners and being polite, and whatever happens in the house a second before you throw the door open stops, and it's you make people feel welcome. So I guess make you feel welcome, hospitality. It sounds so superficial, but if you can start there, if you can start out meeting somebody with a sincere interest and listening to them and welcoming them and making them feel like they're bringing something to your party, then I think you're off on the right track. Mm-hmm. If you can keep that up the rest of your life, right? Take time, but also give time. So that's my mother speaking, the host.
Well, that's the perfect segue to bring on Donna.
Wait a minute.
No warning for you.
Hello.
Donna, it is so great to have you here.
It's great to be here. I've been enjoying this conversation.
Thank you. I've been trying to get you on this show for so long, but you were the busiest person in show business.
It's pretty busy up here, I have to say. Yeah.
So, I said earlier, and I'm going to go over the questions that we have brought up, but the first question is 10 seconds for you to identify what makes a great person.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
That's the greatest tenet right there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, are you stereotypical in any way?
I'm sort of stereotypical Libra. I'm sorry to steal John's, but I am. My entire life has been about this. My whole life, my whole career, all of my relationships. That's who I am.
And mentors, the mentors that you have had, and obviously with the work that you do, you are a mentor.
Yeah. I've had a lot of mentors. I think immediately of all the really strong women that mentored me. I had some female teachers in my early years, but mostly after college, when I had a lot of really wonderful female theater professionals who mentored me. I think of a woman named Jane Nelson, who was the production manager at Virginia Opera when I was hired as a production assistant, my first job right out of college, and Brett Finley, a wonderful production stage manager that I learned so much from and continue to admire just about the way not only she does her work, but the way she lives her life. And Sue Frost, the longtime associate producer here at Goodspeed, who then went on to become the Tony Award-winning producer of things like Memphis and Come From Away, have all been great friends and mentors to me. And yeah, in the work that I do, there's so many here at Goodspeed. I've been here so long, and so many young people come through here as they start their careers in theater and musical theater specifically. There's been a long list of mentoring that I've done, and folks that have gone on to careers in the business that I'm really, really proud of.
Well, Donna, has Goodspeed ever had, like, for lack of a better word, a flop? Because I have never seen anything at Goodspeed that
Toy.
But I was going to say that I have never seen anything there that I wasn't completely blown away by.
Well, you're probably our target audience, Richard. Right? Right. Yeah. But thank you for that. I think that we produce musical theater really well here at Goodspeed. It is all we do. Nobody comes to work at Goodspeed unless they love musical theater. Literally from the bottom to the top, everybody's here because they love musical theater. And so I think we do it really, really well. And we've had, runs, hits, and errors, of course, but I think the energy in the space is really unique. I think so much energy comes off of that small stage into that intimate auditorium that the audience often doesn't have a chance. They just got to hang on and have a good time.
And how long have you been with Goodspeed?
A little over 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I started as the assistant stage manager here on the Opera House stage, and I like to say clawed my bloody way to the top.
Good for you. Well, one thing that I used to love that is no longer there, unfortunately, is Show Music Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I still have my old collection of them here, and it was something I looked forward to, those magazines, and I'm sure that you missed them as well.
Yeah, it was such a great project for Goodspeed and the perfect home for it here at Goodspeed, but went away. And I will say, during the pandemic, I sort of looked around and went, does anybody remember show music? Should we be doing that again? But of course didn't have the bandwidth to take it on. It would be wonderful to bring back again. But
I wish that it could happen.
You have to solve a few other problems first.
Well, of course.
What were some of the challenges that you faced during the whole COVID shutdown?
I'm sorry?
What were some of the challenges that?
Well, the big one of just staying in touch with our audience, right? I think audience communication, audience donor community, continuing to engage all of those people so that when we were able to reopen, they came back to us, and I'm very happy to say that they did. And then staff, managing, caring for our staff. Anybody who works in this industry knows what that was during lockdown. And of course, there was so much pain and suffering, but our industry was very specific, the first to shut down, the last to reopen. And in the meantime, a lot of fear about what was happening and how we were going to recover from all that.
When you came back, did the audience automatically come back, or did it take a little time for them to get back?
It took a little time. We opened we were so desperate to be performing and to be bringing people back to work that in August and September of 2020, if you can remember back to that time, here in Connecticut, we still had to, even outside, be 15 feet away, your household from another household, outside. And we hired this wonderful group of performers. Your audience should look them up, the Playbillies. They do bluegrass covers of show tunes. They're based in New York City. Fantastic guys. And until you have heard Defying Gravity is a bluegrass tune, you have not heard Defying Gravity. I want to tell you, no offense to Stephen Schwartz, but man, it's just amazing. So we hired these guys, and 40 to 50 people came and sat in their clumps out on the lawn in August and September.
Right.
And we performed. The following year, we started in 21 under a tent on the lawn. And didn't come back inside until fall of 21 with the production of Grand Night for Singing. And what we learned through all of those events was that there was an audience that didn't really know Goodspeed well, that we were tapping into with some of those non-traditional performances.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned that there was a core audience that was really, really anxious to come back to us. I meet with donors in my office at intermission for many shows, and more than one couple said to me, Goodspeed is what we missed the most, but don't tell my children. Yeah. And then, what we discovered from the beautiful production of Grand Night for Singing that we did was that our audience wanted a show. They wanted a story. They wanted book. They wanted costumes and scenery and a full orchestration. They wanted what they were used to having from us. And so we made the decision very quickly there in fall of 21 that planning for 22, we had to come back strong, that if we were going to succeed, we had to be the Goodspeed people expected us to be. And we did that in 2022, and they came back.
Well, I want to ask you, when you're putting a season together, what is your process like? I'm sure that it ebbs and flows, but do you have a particular formula that you're looking for as you're putting the season together?
Yeah, and even the formula ebbs and flows, because as we all are working to evolve our theaters, to evolve our audiences, to make space for voices that have historically been underrepresented in our industry, that is an entire effort within our programming. At the same time, we have to bring our audience along with us. We don't want to evolve so that we're pushing them away. We want to evolve in such a way that they say, oh, what's going on there? Yes, I still want to be part of this. And so it's a constantly evolving question of how do we satisfy the people who want the old-fashioned musical comedy, the song and dance thing, and yet how do we continue to evolve the form, our audience, our artist, the theater as a whole. And I think that we are doing a good job of navigating that path while we evolve. But it's constantly evolving. Everybody here right now is very anxious for me to say what 2024 is going to be. And
you're going to make an announcement today.
I wish I were ready.
Oh my God.
Really wish I were ready.
Well, when you're ready, come back.
Okay.
It's
a deal.
So there's one question left, and I'm going to ask you, what parts of yourself are you too afraid to express and share, and why?
Oh, all the emotion. I'm like Mama Rose. If I let out what was in me, the emotion. Dr. Judi will have a separate session about it.
There you go.
It's the emotion, because people feel all their feelings right now. Everybody's feeling all of their feelings right now.
Oh my God, yes.
And there are a few people here whose job it is to navigate all that. So.
Well, speaking of navigating, I mean, we're living in a world right now that is so, I feel that everybody is standing on the edge of a precipice. If you say or do the wrong thing, someone's going to get offended. And there's a lot of that going around. And when you're looking at shows that were 30, 40, 50 years ago, our morality, everything has changed. How do you bring those musicals in, wanting to be true to the original source, but also respecting today's audience?
Mm-hmm. How we are doing it is to make sure that many voices are in the room as we undertake that work. So I will use, although this is a new musical, it is an old the adaptation of something old. I'll use the production of Summerstock that is Boffo on our stage right now. You better get your tickets.
Congratulations.
It's actually really good. It is just thrilling audiences. I'm really, really proud of it. But we looked at the film, it was a great opportunity to adapt something that had a wonderful title that people would feel great about just at the get-go. But we also said we don't want to just put that on stage. First of all, it's not enough to be a full-length musical, but also it's a completely white story, and that's not what we want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So our team went to work to find an authentic way to make sure that the company on our stage represented a larger world. And I think we found a very authentic way to do that. And I think we have a story that is diverse and authentically so. And yet feels like a good old-fashioned musical comedy.
That's great. Well, you're the best at doing that. So congratulations. Judi, anything before I've got some questions that we're going to do like a round robin thing on creativity. I've got a lot of random questions here. So,
my only question is whether you'd mentioned, Donna, that, during COVID, you brought in these other types of acts, which brought in a different audience for you.
Absolutely.
So are you going to continue doing that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, because when we did that first summer out on the lawn, 45% of those people had never purchased tickets from us.
Amazing.
And when we continued, 25%. And we have been almost at that place since recovery. Every year that we check, it's 25% of the audience is new to us and growing, which is very exciting. And yes, we are seeing that our audience is changing. So, I mean, I'm here all the time. I see people. I know that they are not the same people that were here before. And we are very intentionally evolving programming. The next project on our schedule here at the Goodspeed is the 12.
Neil Berg,
my
neighbor.
Neil Berg and Robert Shankin with John Doyle directing, a contemporary telling of what may have happened between the death of Jesus and the disappearance of Jesus' body. I am not a person of great religious faith, so I will tell that story my way. But it is an absolutely thrilling, moving story on the edge of your seat. I say, not unlike 1776, you know what's going to happen, but you're sitting on the edge of your seat, to experience it. And
the music is phenomenal.
The music's phenomenal.
Oh,
you know it, Richard?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the music's phenomenal. It's a great book. It is great music. I'm really, and John, of course, is such a brilliant director. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a heavy lift, to your question, Judi. It's going to be a heavy lift for our audience, and we're spending a lot of energy messaging to them about the show, why this show, what it actually is. Because for me, ultimately, it's a story about choosing to take love into the world. And I don't know why anyone would be afraid of that, right?
No, I'm very excited. I can't wait. And I will be there to see that. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask just some questions on the creative process. I'll start with you, Donald. And the question is, very interesting. What have you lost this week when it comes to your creativity that you would most like to retrieve?
I don't know that I've lost anything other than some of my free time. One of the things I love about doing the radio show is it has always been my creative outlet for so many years now. And I love coming up with ideas for shows. Not because I do more than just interview shows, and I like coming up with the themes for shows that I do. But the last couple of weeks, especially this week, has been so busy with, I've got an elderly dog who's not doing very well. I've got consulting work that I'm doing for a major law firm. So it's sort of like I kind of miss the days, actually I hate to say this, I miss the days of COVID when I had a lot of free time. And things were so, one of the things I have to say is, and I know where Donna's coming from because I have so many friends involved with different theater companies and how difficult it was. But at the same time, the interesting thing I found on the radio show was the creative spark that was still there for so many artists, and how, as the time went on, I started getting people on the show who had written books about, theater coming back and what they were doing. And so many, you cannot suppress creativity. And I saw during the pandemic that even though people were not able to do shows and Broadway was shut down and theaters around the country were shut down, people were still creating. They were writing, they were composing music, they were recording albums in their closets. I mean, you just couldn't keep it down. And that to me was always the bright light of that. So in some ways, now that we've all gotten back to our almost pre-pandemic lives, we've kind of lost some of that time that we had and that energy we had to create things. And I miss that a little bit.
Well, my heart aches tremendously with the strikes going on right now and the fact that after 3 years of everything shutting down almost, that just as we're getting into the groove of it, everything stops again.
Yeah.
And my hope, I am in solidarity with everyone on strike. IATSE, we heard that they may be coming to an agreement, thank God, because that would have been devastating to the Broadway community if the strike happens, and fingers and prayers and everything else that they're going to get what they're all seeking. And it's a difficult.
But in line with what you were saying, though, Donald, yes, the actors are on strike, the writers are on strike, and that said, all the writers that I know, and I know a lot of writers, being one of them, are using the time to write their own projects, right? To write their own stuff. So they're still, using that creative muscle,
right,
regardless. So, and I'm sure that the actors are doing their version of that. I'm an AFTRA, SAG-AFTRA, so I'm technically on strike. But again, I know an awful lot of people in the business, and they adapt in their own ways to making sure that creative outlet is still a part of their life.
Absolutely. John, question for you. When have you said yes in this business, and it was absolutely the right time to say yes that propelled you forward?
I want their questions.
Well, you got great questions coming up too.
There are two things I said I would never do in the theater: a Christmas show and a solo show. I said there was too much of that. There's too many Christmas shows and too many solo shows, and then too much Shakespeare, right? There's just like Shakespeare all over the place. And I have done all three, but the solo work surprised me the most. Mm-hmm. It really surprised me the most, and it horrified me. It terrified me. I was like, "What the hell are you doing? No. This is no. There's nobody to help you. If you screw up, you're just gonna be standing there, right?" And I just did it, and I just got out there and I started doing my thing, and I rehearsed it to death. And when the audience was there, I was like, yes. I just, it completely freed me, and it got me through COVID because I was creating shows on Zoom.
And you're brilliant at it. So
yes, thank you. And so that was, saying yes. The Christmas show, the Shakespeare, pretty good. I mean, Shakespeare saves you. He, no matter what you think of Shakespeare going in, he saves you. Like, like that's not obvious, right? But the solo work, there's something so American about it. And I'm not a patriot, but I feel like, wow, it's solo work, right? Yeah, it's we're such soloists here, I guess because we come from a democracy, and we want to like show off.
Everybody wants their voice.
Everyone wants their voice, yes. And then we join a chorus to come back together again.
Absolutely. Donna, when have you asked for help in this business?
Oh my!
In a moment that really propelled you forward.
I asked for help when I began my career as a stage manager, and when I made the move from stage managing to producing to leading me to this moment, both of those sort of big points in my life, I did ask for help. I was no longer satisfied as a stage manager, and knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I had asked for help and found my path to producing. And when I was, when Goodspeed made the decision to go from a single executive to the co-leadership of managing director and artistic director, and I knew that I wanted to apply for the artistic director position. I knew that it was what I was supposed to do. I actually hired a coach, which was really, really unusual and out of character for me, but I recognized that I needed help. If I was going to help the people who needed to make the decision to back me to make that decision.
Great.
what did the coach bring to the table that really helped you?
You know, she is a fearless individual. And so she modeled that behavior for me, one. And secondly, she helped me see what I really was, which was a highly effective creative producer who brought an awful lot of skill to the table. And I would not have been able to articulate that. Doing all the work, doing all the same work, I would not have been able to articulate that without her help.
Wow. Judi, any questions based on anything that's been said?
No, it sounds like you had a great coach, and that I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of overlap between what we do, you know, in therapy and what coaches do. A lot of things that don't overlap, but there are also areas that overlap. And it's, you know, so I've certainly functioned as a coach for a number of people, and it's really empowering to see people be able to see themselves differently and what they're capable of, and really understand who they are and own it, and make the changes that they need to make in order to have the life they want to live. So kudos.
Great. Donald, how do you deal with stress when it comes to your creativity?
Oh Lord. I tend to not have a huge amount of stress. But for me, I have discovered, again, kind of flashing back to pandemic, I discovered that I'm a very routine oriented person. So I have a daily routine. I'm an early riser, and I take a nice long 2 to 3 mile walk every morning. Right now I'm doing it really early because it's very warm out here in Los Angeles. But that kind of helps me wind down. And sometimes I listen, and then oftentimes I'll sit, I hate to say this, I'll sit in my car and listen to music, just because that way I'm away from every distraction in my little, my inside of my car. And that's how I get the stress out, is I get the exercise, I sit and listen to music I want to listen to. And then I usually have a list of things every single day that are on my list of things to get done that day. And there's always time set aside in my calendar every single day to work on the radio show and create things and write. And I always have time to sit down to do that.
Good for you. That's wonderful. And those are all good reasons that you, it's all important that we have those. John, have you ever been in a fight with others over your artistic bent, if you will, with where you want to go with your own artistic, you're booked in a theater now, you do solo work, but do you find that you're ever in conflict with others when it comes to creating your work now?
Years ago, always. There was always a problem, there was like the drama of rehearsal, the drama of creativity. And it was like, it became like an obsession that I had to, getting closer to opening night had to be more and more drama. And I suddenly realized I could get farther just sort of working with people, listening, trying to focus on the collaboration. And, now it's so much of it is just letting other people sort of do their thing. And I find that the ideas, I'm sort of obsessed now with empowerment. When I direct, when I write something, with what can the other people, what suggestions people have, because most of the time they're being a lot more sensitive to my work than I ever imagined when I was much younger, when it was all about my vision, my creativity, my story. And now it's sort of like they read the script, we talk about it, and then ideas start flowing. There's a great movie called Living in Oblivion where Steve Buscemi is trying to make a movie, and he's fighting all the ideas that come from his collaborators. And then eventually he says yes to all of them, and the movie happens, and it's magic. And I find that now, so yeah, it used to be, a regular occurrence, and less now, less and less. And even when there is conflict, I feel like people, by letting people try things and investing my energy in their ideas, if it doesn't work, we all see it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just me seeing it, and I'm not clairvoyant. I don't always know what's going to work. That's why a lot of times I'm just wrong. And so now if there's like conflict, I just let it happen. And then I think all of us will see, oh, that doesn't really work, or it did work. And then I'm like thrilled, right? You know, and then I take all credit for everything. But no, that's not true. I love saying, no, that came from here. That came from here. Yep, that came from here.
Donna, have you ever in your own career, and be honest with us, put up walls around yourself that did not need to be there, and you realized that you had created these artificial walls that held you back as well as everyone else?
I am a fairly transparent person. Sort of what you see is what you get most of the time. So I don't think so, is my answer to the question, or not permanently. You know, when you realize that something needs to be different, it's not a light switch. You're feeling something, you're experiencing something, and you say, oh, this is what that's about. Let me navigate this. But I don't think that I am someone who puts up a lot of walls to anybody about anything.
That's good. That's very good. Judi, anything you want to say? And then we're going to do one more round of questions.
No, but being open to others and to their input, I think is essential, right? We don't know everything, and unless it's something we find offensive, that's different. But otherwise, if there's suggestions, like John was saying, you give it a shot. It works. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Absolutely. Donald, when it comes to your creativity, are there any activities that you actually dislike, and what gets you through those?
Oh, I don't know that there's any activities I dislike. I'm kind of at the point in my life where I'm a little picky and pick and choose how I spend my free time. And I hate to say this, but it's sort of selfish in the sense that I won't go see a show or a film or whatever if it really just doesn't interest me. And I just don't want to waste my time. And I know that, being in theater, you want to see as many things as you can see, but sometimes I don't know that I can sit through another production of Fiddler on the Roof. Or I don't know, and I hate to say that, but at some point you kind of get, are like
the right productions. I will say this, and I'm sure that John is going to agree with me on this. At least I think you will, John. Quite honestly, as an artist, I don't want people to be sitting out there who don't want to be there.
Right.
Because that really affects the people around them.
Sure.
It affects what's going on stage. To me, it's all collaboration, and it's all about the give and take between you and the audience. And if someone truly does not want to be there, they shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
As much as we want them there.
Right. No, I agree. But at the same time, I will be honest with you. Even if it's something I don't want to necessarily go myself because I know that I will not be a good audience member, I will still encourage my friends to go see it, especially if it's a show they've never seen before, or if it's a production that, is a unique take on it. For example, I just recently had some friends who went to see the tour of Into the Woods here in Los Angeles, and they really wanted me to go. And I'm sort of like, well, I saw this production in New York already, and I've seen multiple productions of it. I don't really need to see it again, but I don't know that I'll enjoy sitting through it. I mean, I enjoyed sitting through it the first time, but I don't know that I really would enjoy, 2.5 hours of watching it again. But I really think you guys should go see it. You've never seen Into the Woods on stage. It's a unique production of the show, amazing cast. By all means, go. But again, I get to be a little picky about my free time, which is, in some ways it's bad, in some ways it's good.
No, I think it's all good if you know exactly what you want. John, what activities, when it comes to your creativity, that you absolutely love doing, and what gives you the most joy with the work that you're doing now?
It's funny when you ask Donald, starting to rehearse just is such labor for me. I don't like starting. It's like the starting. It's like getting it all together, getting organized, but performing, as much as it like scares me, once I get going, I'm in bliss. I really am. I just am like, you know, it's like things can go wrong and it's fine. But usually I'm just sort of like, it reminds me what all the work was for. And it's joyful to be on stage. And you're right, there are people in the audience who don't want to be there. You're aware of them. But never second guess an audience, because
That's right.
that whole thing of like the biggest sourpuss in the audience waiting to talk to you after the show. Oh my God, I love the show. I'm like, what, are you kidding? You're in pain. But you don't say that. You're like, oh, thank you. What, really? I said, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're very specific. You're like, all right. So never think you've got somebody out there. It's just, you know, if you can see the audience, and oftentimes I can, it's like you can't hold them responsible for the way they watch something.
And always be gracious with them. And I'll share a story in a few moments. Donna, when you look at your career and where you are now, do you feel that you've manifested the career that you've desired for yourself?
I don't think I recognized where I was going. I don't think I certainly did not plan to be the artistic director, the first artistic director of Goodspeed Musicals. I certainly didn't plan that. I think that I wanted to work, and I have always worked. And that work has brought me to this moment.
And a lot of people can't say that in this business.
Yeah.
So congratulations. I've really enjoyed this hour. It's flown for me. I'm going to give everybody a chance to have your final word today. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with. I want to give a huge shout out to Carol Giroux, who has been very hands-on with getting you here. So Carol, if you happen to be watching, thank you. So is that her coming in now?
No, it's not her.
No.
I'm like, not right now.
John brings up a very interesting point. I'm going to share a funny story that happened with me in my days when I was performing as Carol Channing. I was doing my show down in Florida, and in Punta Gorda, Florida, and I finished the show, and a woman came up and she put a piece of paper in my hand, and it said, "You are a huge disappointment." And so it walked away. She just walked away. And I went over to her and I said, "I have to know what it was that was a huge disappointment for you." She said, "I waited all night for you to sing Hello Dolly, and you didn't sing Hello Dolly." And I said, "There's a reason why I don't sing Hello Dolly in the show. Carol said to me, she didn't sing Hello Dolly. Everybody sang Hello Dolly to her, and it didn't make sense for me as Carol to be singing that song." And this woman said, "But you're not Carol Channing." And I said, "I was Carol Channing enough for you to be disappointed that I didn't do the song." And she laughed. And I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. What's your name?" She gave me her name. I said, "Come back tomorrow night as my guest, and I will sing just to you using your name." And she came back. So after the show, it always listen to what your audience says to you and be gracious always, because you don't know what brought them to where they are at that moment. So I think that's very, very important. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in a long time. I want you all to do the same thing. Pick up the phone, call someone, not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know that they've made a difference in your life. And if you do that, you're going to make a difference in their life. And I think it's important that we all do that instead of the accolades that come after they're gone. So take the time to do that. I have a dear friend. He says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. And so I'm going to leave the screen, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Donald, and then you, John, and then Donna, and Judi will have the final word. And you're all welcome here. And Donna, I want you to come back when you're ready to announce the next season.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's all yours, Donald.
I guess I go first, and I just want to encourage everybody who's watching support your local theaters, please. Theater is not just New York and Broadway. Theater is the small community playhouse in your neighborhood. It's the little black box theaters. It's the dinner theaters. It's the cabarets where people like who are doing one-person shows. Please support theater. It's just so important to the artistic culture of this country. So get out there and buy some tickets, please.
Thank you, Donald. John?
Yes, indeed. And I also want to encourage everybody. What I love about this show is creativity. I think that creativity is what we're on this planet for. Create. I think if you do, you'll be a sounder, healthier person. I think Dr. Judi Blume will reinforce that. If you have an outlet, it centers you. It makes you more sensitive to other people. It makes you listen better. It just makes you, I think, overall a better person. It's been such a privilege being on the show. Thank you.
Great. We'll hope you'll be back again.
Artistic directors. I love artistic directors. I'm an artistic director myself. So keep it up. We need more art in this country, right? That's accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Donna.
First of all, it's been such a pleasure to have the opportunity to reflect a little bit. We don't do enough of that. So thank you, Richard and Judi, for the opportunity to reflect a little bit. And echo what Donald said, support your local theater, your regional theater, your community theater, whatever it is. It is important what we do. And what happens in our hometown theater and our regional theater, the artists that are encouraged and built at the bottom of the rung are the folks that we eventually celebrate at the top of our industry. And so please get out there and support their creativity is what I want to share.
And thank you so much for doing that for so many people.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye. And Richard and I are going to take a little time off. We will be back again in mid-October. And we will be enjoying ourselves, having some playtime, laughing, enjoying friends, enjoying the theater, traveling. And we want you to do the same, to take some time to just really enjoy yourself. Find the playfulness in every day. Do something that makes you laugh and embrace today as the day that you make things start to turn around in your own life. We'll see you in October.